Hello, welcome. Happy Monday, everybody. September 8th. The day is finally here. We've been waiting, gosh, 2, 3 weeks at least since we announced it. Importantly, it is my daughter's birthday today, so I'm going to go ahead and take control of the mic and give a shout out. Happy birthday to my sweet girl Emily, who turns 17 today and starts her senior year in high school. I know I look like I'm only 27 myself, but it's fun to see kids grow up, and they're great at all ages, and excited for this one for her. Welcome to everybody who's here. Thank you for joining our State of the Industry panel. Super excited to have a conversation with these 5 incredible experts within the wedding industry. We've got 1,200 plus people who have signed up, and over 350 who are showing up live right now, and I'm sure that number will continue to jump up. If you would mind sharing where you are from, what you do, that would be fabulous. Just drop it in the chat. I've already seen so many people who I recognize, and it's always fun to have that kind of connection and banter back and forth. We have a couple of moderators. My wife, Katie, and Stephanie from our team are on as well, and they will be able to answer any questions that people have or comments that are dropped into the chat. I want to go through and get things quickly started here so that we can make the most use of our time. This is the 3rd time that I have hosted this panel. Every year, the wedding industry tends to shift a little bit here and there. Some of those shifts feel like, like little ripples, and other times they feel like tidal waves, and they tend to knock things over, including people who are unprepared. And so this panel is an opportunity for you to get a little bit more prepared for what is coming down the pipeline for 2025, the remainder of 2025 and 2026. A lot of people are asking right now, where is the wedding industry? How are we able to plan for what's coming down the road? How do I adjust my business so I don't just survive what we're in, but how do I still thrive? And that's why we're here today. So thank you for everybody who's here. If you don't know me, my name is Sam Jacobson. I'm the founder of ID Action Consulting, co-founder of Duet Social Media with my business partner, Abby Jew. I'm really excited to have everybody here. This is clearly our biggest turnout yet, and I think that speaks to, one, the amazingness of our panelists, and also how people are trying to figure out a way through. It's hard to get a good vision perspective when the only thing that we see is our business, or maybe the business of a couple of different people that we're close to. So whether you're a planner, florist, designer, venue owner, you guys have carved out time today, and you're going to get some really good insights on what you need to do for the upcoming several months. So the goal today is simple. We want to cut through the noise, and we want to talk honestly about what's actually happening in the wedding world. We're going to focus on 3 things: what our panelists are seeing, why they think that it's happening, and how they're responding to it. And that last part, that adapting to where we're at, that's the focus of the conversation today, because I know that's what's going to give you the kind of tangible takeaways that are important. So there's no polished presentation here. We're going to try and just engage in a real, authentic, genuine conversation. We want you to get practical insights that you can apply as soon as you're all done with this. So we're going to get started here. Real quick housekeeping note. Please take notes if you want to. Ask questions if you want to. Drop them into the Q&A, not the chat, but the Q&A if you have a question that you want eventually answered by the panel. We're going to hear a lot of great ideas. You may have hands that are slower than the ideas come out, so don't fret. We have a replay that we will be sharing with everybody after this, and so you'll get an opportunity if you have to leave or if you didn't take something down to revisit that. We will do the Q&A towards the end. I'll save a good chunk of the time, probably about 30 minutes for Q&A. So if you've got a question that does come up in your mind, please jot it down. We'd love to go through and answer it. We're going to go through and do some quick introductions here. We're going to keep them real short, under 30 seconds, because we want you to know who you're talking to, but we also don't want to take up too much of the time. And then after that, I'll kind of sign off and facilitate the conversation and have the panelists get going. So thank you all for the chance to share that information with you. And let's go through and learn who our panelists are. We're going to do this alphabetically. So Abby, we're going to go ahead and begin with you.
Hi, I am Abby Jew, co-founder of Duet Social Media, and I've also been a wedding photographer. And I'm so that's one of the reasons I started Duet. I really want people to think our social as a after So now what do I do with it? We want you to go in with a plan, have some strategy around it, and create a community.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Abby. Daniel?
Hi, I'm Daniel. I have been a wedding photographer since I was 19 years old. I've been doing it for almost, at this point, 17, 18 years, and have a BFA in photography from ASU. And glad to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Daniel. Eleanor?
Hey, my name is Eleanor Scola. I'm the Director of Sales at Nuage Designs. I started my career in the events industry 17 years ago as an event design coordinator for a full service event design and production firm in Atlanta, Georgia, and then was fortunate enough to come on with Nuage Designs about 13 years ago. I started as an account manager, just working on business development and serving clients, and it's been a love story ever since. And I'm currently leading our team in as our director of sales. Yep.
Thanks, Eleanor. Kimberly?
Hi. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me be part of this panel. I'm super excited to be part of the conversation. Kimberly Richmond, the Vice President of Sales for Associated Luxury Hotels International, ALHI for short. So I oversee our weddings division, which means I have a front row seat to what hotels are seeing in today's industry, and super excited to share it with you all. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. Laura?
Hi guys, Laura Ritchie. Thank you so much for having me, Sam. I am the principal designer of Grit and Grace. We are a luxury event design firm outside of Washington, D.C. I've been in the industry for 16 years. I worked in hotels, catering, and I've had this company ever since. I have a background in fashion and marketing, and I really pride myself on being the make it happen captain and being a joy to work with, a vendor's vendor, if you will. I also provide mentoring and consulting for many planners and photographers and venues across the country to help facilitate and people understand markets and how to level up and make the most of their market.
Yeah, thanks, Laura, and thanks for everybody. You know, I think one of the things that I want to highlight here as we go through this conversation is that I picked everybody who's here very strategically. I went through and tried to identify major market segments, whether that was planning or photography or venues or rentals, so that we could carve out a wide swath of direct interaction with that kind of segment. I also wanted to bring in Kimberly and Eleanor specifically, as well as Abby with Duet, because you all have multiple clients that are in multiple markets at different areas. And Laura and Daniel, you also have education as a platform and mentoring and coaching, et cetera, that you're a part of. And so all of these things allow the people who are listening to this panel to get a really good taste of not just what's happening with your business, but what you're hearing from other people. And so I just want to highlight that because I know that sometimes it's hard to figure out where the advice is coming from, but y'all are factoring this in with more than just what's happening with where you're at right now. Eleanor, I want to go with you first. I just want to get kind of a lay of the land from everybody who's on the panel. You know, what are things like for business right now?
Yeah, I think we are seeing clients start to get really creative in their decision-making process around how they're utilizing budgets on behalf of their clients. So specifically when it comes to rentals, of course, that's the scope through which I'm experiencing the state of the industry today. We're seeing people apply a broad strategy where they're using accessory items, or maybe they're strategically placing or using their budget in certain areas where they know they're going to get the most impact. We are still seeing plenty of clients who are showing up with a really robust budget, which is great. But we're also starting to see a balance on the lower end of the spectrum as well, where these clients may be a little more cost conscious, but they still want to bring style and something a little bit elevated to their taste that fits within their budget. We're also seeing a massive renaissance, if you will, in the corporate sector, where our corporate clients are really showing up with big, bold design visions at the moment, which is really exciting. I think that was something that maybe contracted a little bit during the COVID era and has come back with full force. So that's great for any of those who are serving the corporate sector.
Laura, as a planner, Eleanor mentioned that people are prioritizing more with their budgets. What kind of things are you seeing when it comes to how couples are spending their money?
Yeah, money, right? That's really where it's all at. I completely agree with Eleanor. People want to be creative, they want to look unique, they want to stand out. I think the social media side of it and the competitiveness amongst themselves, amongst their friends, is huge. And vendor to vendor is the same way. And so it's kind of everyone trying to push the envelope to be the next cool thing or wow moment. And so for me, at least with my personal clients, I'm always trying to find something that's never been done before, less repeating what's on Pinterest or what's already been seen or been done. And so I think that creative factor pushed by social media and the compare and contrast of your friends and other vendors is a major player here. But I do think people are being creative with how that's being spent on. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a luxury wedding for it to be fabulous or for it to be unique or for it to break the internet. It's how it's done, how thoughtfully it connects to the client. And I really think that people want that moment for themselves. And if they're genuine in how it's being done, it really reads really well and as an afterthought too.
Daniel, I know that you work with a large variety of clients, directly and also the community within the photography world. What are you seeing right now where you're sitting from?
What I'm seeing is, I mean, honestly, the weddings have been all over the spectrum. Like photography has been all over the spectrum. What I'm finding, and I can only obviously speak from personal experience, talking with clients, inquiring, my current clients and also photographers, is that people, I think, just want something that feels really true to themselves. And so whether it's a client, like whenever I get a client call, the last thing we usually talk about is photography. The first thing I ask them is, how do you want to feel from your wedding? And a lot of times they're like, you're like one of the first people that's like asked me that. And so I think, especially because there's a lot of noise right now, and I feel like people just want to feel connected, and that's kind of always been a huge part of how I run my business. And that's just what I'm seeing, because I think human connection, we're all humans, that spans from any budget to this budget, right? That's like kind of the unifying factor. And so, for at least for me and my clients, that's what I'm finding, is that people are just really wanting to feel connected, not with their guests and their weddings, but also with their vendors. That's like, I think, a huge, huge part of it.
Abby, you and I obviously work together a lot, talking a lot about social media. How has social media changed, or how is it being impacted by the kinds of sentiments that Daniel shared of wanting to connect to vendors?
Yeah, I really like what you said, Daniel, about people wanting to feel true to themselves and connect. And I think also, like, in addition to that, what he said too, there's a lot of noise. There's so much education. I hear a lot from the industry that couples are coming to their first point of contact, whether that be a planner or photographer or whatever, with a lot more education. They used to be like, hey, I'm going to go to my planner. They're going to give me my suggestions and I'm just going to pick from these three. And now the planner might have these three or whatever, but they're also saying, well, I saw this person on Reddit. I've been following this person for Instagram for a while. So going back to what Daniel said, like feeling that connection is really important. So treating social not just as your portfolio, but a way to connect with people is really huge.
Kimberly, you've got a company and organization that connects with a lot of different properties. What's your take on the pulse of what you're hearing from the venue side, knowing that venues are kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to what happens for the industry?
Absolutely. So I feel that, of course, I sit in a very unique seat in that we do represent 250 or so venues around the world. So I kind of see a little bit of everything depending on what destination we're talking about. I think the biggest takeaways and sort of shifts that I've seen are demand, where I'm seeing some properties, specifically in the South, that are saying, demand is still strong, 2025, 2026, specifically for the spring fall budgets. I'm seeing other destinations like DC, where I sit, where it's a little bit more of an influx. And I would say, sort of those mid-level priced weddings are kind of holding back a little bit, where it hasn't really affected more of the high-end weddings. Booking patterns much shorter than what we've seen in the past. I think typically the booking pattern has been like 12 to 18 months. What I'm seeing in terms of leads coming in, it's more 6 to 9 months. Sometimes I've seen like 3 months, specifically for couples that have, seasoned planners that know how to move quickly. Budgets shifting with clients as well. Not necessarily that they're decreasing their budgets, but they're being more sort of mindful in terms of how they're spending them, in terms of wanting the experience overall to be amazing for their guests, where they're willing to sacrifice certain things like maybe flowers or other areas so that they have more spend for their guests. So it's I've seen a little bit of all of it, but I would say those are kind of the key takeaways I've seen just in the last say 12 to 18 months or so.
I almost broke my fingers taking notes on that one. Thanks, Kimberly, for those insights. I'm going to come back to many of them.
Yeah.
Daniel, I want to return to something that you said, and that has to do with what it is that couples are interested in right now. One of the questions that I get asked all the time is not just what's going on in the wedding industry, but is it that different from what we were experiencing last year or the year before, or even pre-pandemic, now that we've kind of normalized? Do you feel like it's something new that couples have wanted to remain true to themselves or connect with their vendors, or is that something that you've seen a big increase in the last couple of years?
I think it's something that I've seen a big increase in the last couple of years because I think, when it comes to like when the pandemic happened and people did have to shift, they really had to reevaluate everything. You know, we have to cut our guest list. Like, okay, now we only can invite certain amount of people. We are having to shift our venues. And when I have to like think about, okay, now we have to do it at home. What is this all about? And it's also kind of like when they look at their vendors, I think, especially with the internet, people they're like Abby had said, they're a lot more educated coming in. And so what I'm finding is that people are like, okay, like at least, couples I talk to, there's a lot of talented wedding photographers out there. But I think most people, they want someone just beyond like, okay, what service can you provide? It's almost like, what do you stand for? Do your values align with my values? When I talk with my couples, I straight up tell them, like, you don't have to have a wedding. Like you could get married in your living room and people did it during COVID. But why are you having this wedding? And I think people appreciate that honest conversation because they're like, well, we're having our wedding because all these people that we love, we want them to come celebrate with us. And then it aligns with kind of like how I shoot and what I show because they're just like, and we chose you because we notice you show a lot of these connections and interactions and this is our wedding. I always tell these people like, listen, I know the wedding's about you guys, but you guys are not walking around holding a mirror to your face, watching yourself experience the wedding. You're looking out. And when you look at these photos, I want you to experience that same thing. So a lot of these will have your guests in them. It'll have you in them, but a lot of them will have your guests in them. And I think when people know what you stand for and your values, it makes everything else so much easier because they're choosing vendors based on what their values are, whatever that is. And so that's what I'm seeing since COVID. I think it did kind of this major like reset, and that's just what I've seen.
Abby, I want to go to something you said a few minutes ago, which is that social media has kind of shifted a little bit. It's crowded, it's noisy, all those things. How does what Daniel says about the importance of putting out there what you stand for show up in social media now that it didn't 6, 12, 24 months ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think Daniel has such a unique point of view, and he has not been scared to lean into it, right? Like he is not afraid to repel someone that just wants to put on a show and doesn't care about the people that are there. And so by doing that, he has cut through the noise and the people know how to find him. And if you go to his social, you can feel it, not only from the images, but like the captions, everything is there and it's a complete thought. And if you have those values, you will align with them really fast. And it's not a mystery. You know, he puts it out there and he's not afraid. So I think that's so huge, is not being vanilla, not being basic. You got to be ready to lean into what you want to attract and not be scared to repel people.
Laura, as a planner, you have intimate knowledge of the conversations that couples have about vendor selection. So obviously, as it pertains to your own business, you've got some, some ideas and some interest in it, but you get to hear what couples are thinking about, feeling, arguing about, and ultimately using as their criteria. What's the shift, or what are you seeing right now that's more important than ever?
Well, first, I love what Daniel said. I could not nod my head anymore. I think some of my best clients are people that found me on Instagram when I was drinking in my closet during COVID. And I did this whole thing called Closet Confessions. And it was just silly. It was to be entertaining. It's saved on my highlight reel on my Instagram if you want to see a few. But I was entertaining myself and just being super authentic, and trying to survive COVID and whatever. I got more clients, more high-end clients from being your most authentic self all the time. Um, because of things like that, from building a dollhouse to showing beautiful weddings to truly being who you are. Clients want to hire the person. It's no longer XYZ photography company, which pre-COVID, or probably aging myself here, 15 years ago, it was just a conglomerate of photographers that all worked under a name. These people are reaching out to Daniel or Abby or me specifically because they like the person. They're spending their hard-earned money, and let's get real, money is not cheap. And it might be mattress money to some. They were always planning on blowing X, Y, and Z on their wedding, but that doesn't mean we should diminish what that coin costs to each person. They want to put that coin in someone's pocket that they genuinely like. And so if you're confused about what clients are seeing, if you're not putting your face on your socials or participating on Reddit, you're missing those people. I have more clients currently that are really excited about something they saw. They're checking threads on Reddit for feedback on photographers. I didn't even know it was a thing. I had a client educate me on that. I'm like, well, I crowdsourced and asked all these people that use this band. And I'm like, well, I can vouch for the band. It's not just me. They're looking for more. They are super educated. And so I'm towing the line and obviously making sure we're doing the right things, but they want to spend their money with someone that they like. And Daniel could not have said it better. It's okay to not have weddings and funerals are always going to happen. You don't have to feed everybody. You do need to find your people. This is a hard career. This is not a normal job. For anyone that thinks that like, oh, this is fancy and like fluffy, sure. In those couple moments, it's really great, but we're toiling behind computers. I'm budget crunching. I'm dealing with moms, definitely dealing with dads, and all of the mix of all those things. And gosh, if we don't find a way to make it enjoyable by genuinely liking our other vendor friends and the clients, I mean, if they're not sending me a Christmas card after the wedding, or I'm the first person they call when they have their baby in the hospital, which happened, I'm disappointed in that level of service. And I think everyone needs to lean in to that. If you're not finding leads and you're not finding your people, you need to do the work to put it out there. And what Daniel said about the mirror, reflect it back on people. You don't have to have them all. You need to have the right ones.
Eleanor, I see you got your hand up.
Yes. And I love the direction that this has gone in, because what everyone is talking about here is value centricity in your business. being very, very clear about what your individual or personal values are, or what your values are as a company. And it's something that we at Nuage spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about. We have monthly meetings where we're discussing whether or not the moves that we're making as a business are aligned with our values. And the reason this is so important is if you think about the class or the generation of couples that are aging into marriage age right now, this is a highly emotionally attuned generation of people who are very comfortable talking about their feelings. They've been thinking about their feelings. It's something that is like totally centric to the way that they live their lives. And they've also grown up in a space where socially they've been exposed to a lot of things that aren't real. And they're tired from that. So when they see someone who's confidently capable of projecting their independent values or their business's values, and those are very clear, that's really attractive to those types of people. So, I always think about when you're trying to decide why your business isn't doing well, have you figured out what your values are? And, like Daniel said, he's not afraid to be unabashedly who he is as a business owner and as a photographer, and the right people will come to him for that. And that's all that you need to know, right?
I want to highlight something here and use it to kind of pivot the conversation a little bit. We're talking pretty generally about what's going on in the market and our buyer and all of that. And that, I want to be clear, it's incredibly important to know and to understand. But knowing that the buyer and the market have shifted is just an explanation. It's not an excuse for why your business is not doing well. I'll be the one to say that, because here's the thing. Everything that everybody is talking about right now and has for the last 20 minutes and will for the next hour affects everybody pretty much equally. And so the question is, if you're not doing well and other people are, what's the difference? And my point of bringing that up is that you can turn the mirror on yourself rather than shining it out to the market has changed, the buyer has changed, it's harder, it's crowded, it's noisy. We all agree with that. There's not a single person in this panel who's going to say, it's actually pretty easy to go out there and attract your ideal client and book them for top dollar. It's tough, it's hard, but it's tough and equally hard for everybody who's listening to this right now. So I'm curious, and Kimberly, I'll come to you because I haven't heard from you in a little bit. What is it that your venues that are finding success most have done? Give us one thing that helps them connect with today's buyer differently than, say, a couple of years ago.
Right, absolutely. So they are understanding that today's client isn't who they were 12 or 18 months ago, where again, to my point earlier, to them, personalization is more important than, and customizing what that wedding weekend looks like is more important than, how pretty the flowers are. I mean, they really want to have their guests and have themselves enjoy the experience. So the properties that are really leading into that and, coming up with creative formats that are coming up with, different offerings like shorter booking windows that are being a little bit more flexible, that are actually hearing what the clients are saying. Certain hotels that used to be very strict and that 80% of your guests have to stay at the hotel in order for you to have your wedding here. They're revisiting that because again, clients are being more conservative in how they're spending their budget. So they may have that money, but they may not want to sign up for, 55 guest rooms a night right off the bat. They may want to start out with 25 and then add. They may want to only start out with like the wedding day event, so ceremony, cocktail hour, reception, and then later add on those ancillary events. So I feel that the hotels that are open to that and are agreeing to that and not necessarily discounting their pricing per se, just kind of finding ways to be flexible and actually hearing the client and working with them. Those are the ones I think that are finding the most success. And the other thing, Sam, I'll tell you, by the way, which I think is just elementary 101, is just being responsive, being kind, being genuine. Believe it or not, I hear from a lot of couples that hotels either aren't getting back to them or it's a cut and paste response where sometimes they're not even putting the right name in terms of like, dear Laura, it's, dear Susie, because they're cutting and pasting. So just being mindful. And again, that's just so obvious to me, but I think it's some of the hotels are missing the boat on that. So I think I'll echo what everybody said. being authentic, being genuine, really truly understanding, hey, this is what's going on, and like, how do we work together? Hotels working with planners too. That's another big thing that I underscore and enforce all the time. And like, together, ALHI, planner, hotel, we can figure out a way to make this client's wedding happen, and meet their dreams and expectations and still kind of come within their budget. I think the other thing is having those authentic, real, proactive conversations with clients about what their budget is. Prices are rising. Like, realistically, like, what can you get? What can you not get right off the bat, so that everyone's kind of on the same page from the get go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about pricing and transparency and pricing transparency in the wedding industry. Abby, I just kind of get your take on this. What are some other areas besides pricing, for instance, that you feel like today's couple wants transparency on or wants visibility on?
Yeah, we were just talking in the office, like if you could do post about like how much this wedding cost and like the actual breakdown would be insane. Like people would be so genuinely interested. But I mean, most of our clients want discretion, so that makes sense that you can't do that. So I think what people also want to see is how it's done. Like if this tent goes up over a pool, like that is cool. And we're used to seeing, just the final part, like the tent, the drone shot of the tent next to the house, and you can't even see the pool. But like, how amazing is it that literally you built this structure that holds thousands and thousands of pounds? Like, show how it's made, show the people getting in the water, putting the structures across, and also be vulnerable, be like nervous. Like, it rained during the setup and we were nervous, and the tent started leaking, but we fixed it. Like, it is okay to show that you make mistakes and that you're vulnerable, and just how you are able to overcome them. And like, that makes the connection there.
Yeah, Laura, I'm curious about vulnerability. Abby brought it up. Obviously, you went on and put yourself out there, several years ago. You also mentioned that you're in the luxury, if not ultra luxury market. I think there's this fear that luxury brands shouldn't show their face or shouldn't let people into their personal lives. Clearly, you're not doing things that would align with that outlook. What have you found that might be a myth to bust, or at least a different perspective when it comes to showing your personality, being vulnerable, showing behind the scenes with luxury buyers?
Yeah, I famously have said I actually hate the word luxury. And I've said this for a few years. I actually had it on a post-it note on my desk that luxury stole my joy. I kind of loathe the word. I think I'm using it because it's a coined term. I think we should all carefully consider what luxury is to each person. And for many, that's the experience is the luxury. It's not necessarily a budget tier that separates the haves from have-nots. And I think that word has been watered down dramatically over the last few years. And I think the COVID bubble really burst everything wide open. And the 2021 to 2022, it was like, I have to YOLO and live my life, and I never want to be back in my home again. And then now I think that bubble has retracted. I think people are getting smarter, and in turn looking for the right vendors that meet those things. But it's truly a little, the ick is there with that word. And I think from a client perspective, I think we all need to be careful how we're using that word, because I do think it actually turns some people away. Where some of my favorite clients, my favorite events, and my favorite weddings would not consider themselves luxury. And they're potentially not the most expensive. They just have a great perspective, and they're really interesting people. And I really think that we need to, as a state of the industry, be careful where we use. I think the interior of all of us uses these words like lovely, luxury, ultra luxury. To the client side, I think that can hurt people's feelings pretty dramatically. And there is a market and something for everyone at every tier. And so when we are being careful with words that are not excluding, but maybe careful with what luxury means to certain people, I think it's a little bit more I don't know, something easier to bite on. And when I do mentoring for lots of planners and people across the country, they're struggling to find these right people, or they're really talented, but their market doesn't withhold what they're looking for. So photographers, sure, they can travel. Planners, I think they need to travel to be better. I have some mentorees that have just made mountains out of molehills where they are, and they're just killing it. And it does take time. And I think we're all in this quick, service of I want things, I'm doing things, and it happens right away. And I immediately want my photos from this wedding. But I think the state of the industry right now is a bit of a reset and a reality check for ourselves, but also for these clients and the education that we can provide as vendors of what is special because of what we can do. At the end of the day, they still have to pay. So I'm carefully giving that education line to them.
Yeah, I want to just a couple of quick things here because I totally agree with you, Laura. I'm not a huge fan of luxury. I've abhorred the term lovely since I first heard it back in 2016. I think it's incredibly condescending to somebody who's only spending $100,000 or $150,000 on their wedding. It's like you pull up in a Mercedes G-Wagon, but the guy who's got the Bentley looks down at you and is like, well, I hope they park that away from my car. Like that's the kind of vibe it gives off. I also want to come back to later on in the conversation, so I'll just kind of give you, dear panelists, some time. I want to dig a little bit deeper into the number of people who have had an expectation reset with the pandemic bubble that occurred, and that comment, Laura, that you talked about how fast people expect to find success. Because I think that that's a lot that's at play. I'm hoping that we can create some rapport with our audience before we start talking about the kind of underlying issues that are affecting business owners right now, because I do think that that expectation gap is something that a lot of people aren't talking about. But I just wanted to make a couple of those notes. Like Daniel, I believe in putting myself out there. As Abby has shared with me in the past, I have a perspective that I am not afraid to share. So I'm with you, Laura, on that. I wrote a newsletter last week that said, what price point does luxury start at? And I said, who cares? It's all about how you can provide an incredible experience for your client and their friends and family who are attending the party. Focus on that and you will do well. Kimberly.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump on that, Laura, because again, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the word luxury has been diluted over the years. I think it's important too, and I think Abby may have brought it up earlier. This is a new generation that we're working with, and they have a totally different mindset than the generation did, a year, 2 years ago. So I think, again, being very mindful and careful in the words that we're choosing. They're not looking for luxury per se. And again, what does luxury mean? Nothing really. I don't love the word either. They're looking for that actual experience. So bravo to that, because I totally agree with you on that, Laura.
Daniel, I'm curious about your perspective, just knowing what you've shared with everybody about making sure that you're authentic and true to yourself while still providing a high level of service. You mentioned people getting married in their living rooms or in their backyards at their houses. When it comes to providing that kind of luxury experience that that everybody deserves, whether they're spending $1 million on their wedding or $10,000 on their wedding, what are things that are universally true that are important to couples who are getting married, to their families, that you think that people in the audience can focus on no matter what they sell or what price point they're charging?
I mean, I know we've talked about it, but experience is a big thing. How you show up to a wedding, as a photographer, I'm just speaking from a photographer point of view, but I think it could apply to any vendor. Um, when I show up to a wedding, it's kind of like a current, right? Let's just say the wedding is like a current of water. When I show up, and if I'm just like a rock that's immovable, you're changing that current. So how you show up to a wedding, you're adding or subtracting to their experience of the day. So whether it's, like I remember, because I've never shot with anyone else. I only know how I do things, and I've done it the same way I've done it since I was 19, right? Like 19-year-old kid, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm coming in and I'm going to try my best. And I'm coming in an hour, 2 hours ahead of time so that I can like look at the venue, meet the couple, meet like the family get to know them first before shooting. Like if the couple is and this was as a kid, they're like, hey, like, we're running a little bit late. Can you stay like 30 minutes later? I'm like, yeah, like this is your wedding. Like it might be, I think a lot of things is that for us, it seems like a job, and it's every other weekend or every other third weekend we do this, and it's like, okay, it's the same thing. But I remember watching this episode of The Bear, and where they're having his cousin like polish forks, and he's like, why do I have to do this? Like polishing forks, this is beneath me. And then the guy pulls him aside. He was like, listen, like that we have like a teacher coming in, they've saved up for 2 years to come to our restaurant. Like to them, this is a Super Bowl. He was like, every single night we serve, it's the Super Bowl. And that's like the expectation we have, because these people are coming in expecting an experience. I think by making sure that our clients understand, like, hey, I know this is your Super Bowl. I'm treating this like my Super Bowl too. And it doesn't matter the budget. That's what I think luxury is. It's not like a dollar amount. I think it's, because I remember a planner, Sarah Gabbery from Ammonia Events, when I was like earlier on in my career, I was doing this, and she was just like, I don't think you understand like what you're providing for clients. And I wasn't working with what we call quote unquote luxury clients. But then now, as I'm getting older and wiser, I realized, oh, that's luxury. And I do think everyone deserves that, because again, it doesn't matter who you are, that's your Super Bowl. And I want to show up and be on my best game, stretch, warm up, all that stuff, so I can perform for the audience, like the people attending the Super Bowl. So that's what I think we can do essentially.
It's funny that you say that, Daniel. We love The Bear as well. We watch it. Actually, my daughter and I really like it. My son and my wife not as much. But I worked in restaurants for a dozen years, so it speaks to me. And I remember my very first service manager at the Olive Garden way back when I was 20 years old. And he said to me in the training, and I'll never forget this, you have to remember that the families that come in here, they worked an entire day to earn enough wages to go out and enjoy time. And while it may be just another table for you or just another tip that you're trying to get, you have to remember that for them, this is something that they worked all week to have the opportunity to do for 90 minutes. I remember another commercial that I saw 30 years ago. Bank of America CEO was down in the check processing center, and he said, we don't process 11 million checks in one day. We process one check 11 million times. And that's another thing that has stuck with me, is that I think as we get older, we start to get a little bit more cynical about what it is that we're doing. We see people as numbers or just dates that are on the calendar. And we forget what it is that we're doing. So treat every wedding like it's the most important one for them, and you'll find success. I still remember the names of couples that I worked with as a venue manager back in 2008, 2009. I remember their planners and their concerns and what happened on their wedding day. I encourage all of you to have that kind of connection and that focus on a true, genuine experience, because that's what really makes a difference. And today's couples, they got BS meters that are highly sensitive. If they think that you're paying them lip service, they'll smile politely, just like they do when they say bless your heart in the South, and then they will not email you back, or they will not call you back, or they will throw your proposal into the trash can and move on to another vendor. That is a reason why people get ghosted. Yeah, Daniel, let's hear what you have to
Can I
say.
add to
Until I
that?
want to go back to
Like,
you.
I think one of the things is that when we talk about marketing too, your in-person experience, in my opinion, is the biggest marketing. Like, like people will see you at that wedding. That couple has friends that are engaged. They're in the wedding. They're bridesmaids, groomsmen. They're experiencing it firsthand. And what you're showing them, at least from a photographer point of view, is when you hire me, this is also what you're going to experience at your own wedding. And a lot of referrals can come that way. It makes it easier because instead of me having to tell them this is how it's going to be, they lived it. Like they saw it firsthand. And so that hospitality, like you had said, is I mean, we are a hospitality business. That's really what this is. So,
Eleanor, I want to get your take on this from a B2B perspective. I mean, at New Wise, you aren't working a lot necessarily with frontline couples that are buying. How does this apply if you are working with other vendors on weddings? Can we provide, like, are people still looking for that luxury experience? If so, what is it?
Absolutely. I mean, the things that we focus on when we're talking about customer centricity are client experience. And I know that when Laura is communicating with her clients and saying, we're going to use Nuage products for your wedding, X, Y, or Z, it's because she trusts the person that she's been having that relationship with for 6 months or a year or 2 years, because she knows that her rep, Holly, is going to email her back in 30 minutes or 1 hour. And every single time she's in contact with her, the quote is accurate and she's responsive. She understands her business. So it is that it's the one check cashed 11,000 times. Um, and it doesn't matter to me if you're ordering $200 because you're getting a cake table and maybe 10 napkins, or if you're spending $20,000. Every quote is going to be accurate. It's going to be delivered timely, with somebody that you trust, that will communicate with you in advance to set expectations, manage expectations. Um, and it's because we've set that precedent with our clients. They know they can trust us with their ultra high net worth client or their high net worth client, or this person who's come to them and says, I have 30,000 very, very hard earned dollars, and I'm trusting you to make this day very important for me. So it is in everything that we do. It is the packaging that we choose. It is the client experience. When you call one of our phone lines, I want you speaking to a human, because humans are the thing that make the experience great. And when I can listen to you and I can understand your problems, I can get to know your business, know who your clients are, the specific circumstances that you're dealing with, then I can provide really, really great service to you. And everything that a planner wants, or a venue wants, or a caterer wants is to know, I don't have to worry about my rentals vendor. They've got my back. So we demonstrate that at every step of the way, and it should be the same for any B2B business.
You know, I was reading something in a book the other day, and it said that Muhammad Ali had, indicated in some way or another that he always judges a person by how they treat the waiter at the restaurant. And I was thinking that, like, over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been so much talk and education about how to get on a planner's list. And I keep thinking, like, at the end of the day, it's like, be a good human, show up on time, do what you said that you were going to do, make sure that you pay attention to the important details so that you can be a great member of a team. Like, more than anything, that's what planners and venues are looking for. As a former venue manager, I know that. Laura, I'm curious, as a planner, what's your take on what it takes to get on a list these days, knowing that everybody's fighting for the same, small number of seats?
Oh my gosh, I talk about this all the time with my mentorees. First of all, I would say that most planners do not have a list. If you're really good at your job, then I think I'm really good at my job. Abby, I think we're pretty good at our jobs, right? I don't send my clients a list. I say, I know you went to college, I know what your job is, I know what your family is, I know what your vibe is, I know what you love to listen to. This is the photographer for you. They're going to kill it. I don't have a list that I'm sending to these people. I have my internal list. My internal list is coming from getting to know certain people and what they're good at and how they kill it and who they are and how they represent themselves. So when I say to my client, you need to book Lisa from Abby Jew Photography, there's no questions. They're not questioning it. Or you need to book my friend Nikki because you and her are literally like, you didn't even know that you're missing each other and best friends. You are literally made for each other. And I think, again, going back to the COVID bubble, when everyone decided or lost their jobs or decided to leave their stupid corporate job, and that now they're a creative, they're a planner, they're a florist, they're a photographer, which is so great. And there's so many talented people, but we are super duper infiltrated across the country with Everyone's a photographer, everyone's a planner, everyone's a designer, everyone wants to do all these fun jobs. I think sifting through when it was just, I started my company a couple years ago, but I'm genuinely actually so freaking good at it. And then the people that want this immediate return. So I think as a planner, going back to your question, Sam, I'm looking for the person that I know is the right fit for my client, not necessarily creating a list or receiving a random box in the mail of like tchotchkes and things. Like, I really want to say to a client, I know this photographer. It's crazy. They're in California, but your wedding's in Florida. They are your long lost sister. I can't even, they're so you and you're so them, and they're going to be great. And so how do you do that? You show up online, you make genuine outreach, you are DMing and messaging me on social media. I actually manage my social media, but it's actually me. And so it's not fake. And for anyone who's still using HoneyBook, I the stop using HoneyBook. It's only good for you behind the scenes. I'm sorry if someone's on here from HoneyBook. My clients cannot stand it. And I can tell you who else cannot stand it. And to go to what Eleanor was saying, it's not a person there. It's just automated responses. My moms cannot log in. I literally almost had to fire a hair and makeup team because the mom was so upset that she couldn't figure out where the threads were of the conversations that were happening. She didn't understand it was on a cloud in this person's honeybook. I had to walk her off a ledge. Be the person, be outward, make those connections, answer the phone, respond. And lastly, what I wanted to say, and someone else was messaging people in your Q&A as best I can too privately, but it's okay if you don't get the business. If a planner is reaching out to you, they thought of you. That's great. That's step one. So when then they say, hey, are you available and what's your price point for X, Y, and Z date? Just tell them. Don't hide the prices. They already thought of you to give you the message. Yay! But don't waste your time and their time fiddling around with, let me make a custom proposal, blah, 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 blah. Give me a range. Maybe you do custom proposals, which I love. That's great. Everyone's different. Give me an idea. Hey, I hover around 18 to 22,000. Would love to work with you. I'm free that weekend. What can we do? That's enough for me to say, this client actually doesn't have that budget whatsoever. I don't want to waste your time anymore. Or inverse, actually, that's a great price point. Let me get on the call with the client. Don't hide these things, be upfront. And the fact that someone reached out should be a tiny win from the jump.
That's great. Laura, I want to highlight one thing that I know that you actually do like gifts. They just can't be a box of tchotchkes. They need to be a box of Uncrustables is what they really need to be. So if you're going to give a gift, make sure that it's a good one and thoughtful.
Did everyone see what Sherry Berry sent me? Did you see? This is worth the pause. Hold. This is not even, and people know this because they know that I like Uncrustables. They made me custom stationery with the Uncrustable bit out.
Well played. Well played. This is the kind of stuff that gets in, and because I want to shift the conversation here, just being mindful of time to what it takes to stand out. That is a perfect example of what it takes to stand out. Somebody knew that Laura likes Uncrustables. I say this because I found out about this time last year and sent her some stuff within like an hour, and it showed up in her doorstep, and she was like, "Who gave me these things?" So we know that Uncrustables are a thing for Laura, and so a stationer, obviously, interested in deepening the relationship, nurturing the relationship, and probably as a little tongue-in-cheek inside joke, sends her something that gets it not just to stand out, but to be shared with all of the people who are on here, right? So I'm curious, Abby, I know that you've got a lot of thoughts on this, both from AJP, but also from Duet. What does it take to stand out these days in this super crowded market? How do you create a signal to your ideal client in all the noise that is going on with not just social media, but marketing in general?
Yeah, well, I like when Laura was saying, this is your best fit. and listing all the reasons, if that then potential client goes to your socials or your website and doesn't see these things being fulfilled in some shape or form, they're going to probably be skeptical. So if you want to solidify and like even strengthen that referral, you should be able to go to your social and see like what she described is who you are and like see it there. And you shouldn't have to look hard for it. So I think that's one thing. And, as I mentioned before, just like leaning into it, of not being afraid to be who you want to be. Like people know Laura loves Uncrustables and she wasn't afraid to put it out there. I mean, it doesn't sound scary, but it is like a frozen peanut butter and jelly. It's not this very expensive product, but she made it, about what she likes, and she made that a part of her brand, probably unintentionally, but she did. And so she leaned into it, and that is really how you stand out. So that is one way. And then also showing your process and how everyone here is talking about like their values and what they believe in. Do you also show that on your socials? Because I do think, we said brides and clients come in with so much education, so that they need to be educated, and you need to educate them in the way you can control that is through social media. So I really think that is about putting out your values, who you are, and not being afraid to say you love Uncrustables or whatever it is.
Eleanor, I know you wanted to jump in on the previous question, but I got a new one for you related to what Abby was just talking about, and that is how to stand out. Now, you are in rentals, linens for the most part, and obviously it's a thing. And we know that clients are not as interested in things as they are experiences. That's been a shift over the last several years. So what are you doing with your rentals to differentiate it, knowing that it's a thing, and to the untrained eye, a linen looks like a linen looks like a linen?
Mhm. Well, I think one of the most important things that we aim to do is to make working with us really, really easy, because we don't want to be a point of friction for any of our clients, whether that's from the first moment when they reach out to us, are they getting a response immediately, until that phase where they're packing up their linens at the end of the night. Is the zipper working on your bag, on your return bag? So every single one of those touch points is an opportunity for us to stand out, because we've thought about, number one, what is the actual experience like for these people who are handling our product on site? It's very annoying to have a rental product that shows up and it's damaged or broken, or you have to chase it down because UPS is unreliable, or whatever the problem is. So anticipating those needs in advance and making it as frictionless as possible. Standing out also looks like making beautiful brand new blue boxes. We just rebranded last year, and we decided to flood our boxes in our new signature blue colorway. So that way it's really, really easy when somebody's at a hotel and they have received potentially 60, 70 boxes of miscellaneous goods that are being used in the ballroom. They can very easily spot our blue boxes. Makes it very simple for them to give instruction to somebody who may just be there for the day of, and maybe they've never seen a nuage box before. So just thinking about and anticipating, what is the experience like for the person that I'm working with? And I think that applies to what every single person on this panel has talked about, is taking the time to consider the interaction that you're having, what is important to that person, and implementing steps, whether they're small or broad steps, to make their experience unique to them, easy for them, high success rate, pleasure to work with, all of those things.
Yeah, I want to highlight this because it seems so simple, and it is, but it's not necessarily easy or top of mind. We get so caught up, I think, especially as we move up the ladder of success, whatever that looks like for us, with all of the advanced and sophisticated approaches, that we forget to do the basic things. All clients across all markets, across all vendor fields, want something that is simple, that is hassle-free, that does not require them to do a lot of extra work, that reduces anxiety and worry, and connects them with a high quality product. I mean, this is like table stakes for being a business owner. And I think what happens is that we focus on, what didn't get us from A to B won't get us from B to C, but that's not always true. Some of the stuff that you did from A to B, you've got to keep with you, even when you get all the way to Z, because those are the fundamentals of being a good business. Kimberly, I'm curious your take on, your venues that you rep, and what it is that they're doing to stand out. Because, frankly, to the untrained eye, a gorgeous five-star property looks like a gorgeous five-star property looks like a gorgeous five-star property. I mean, like, I love going through Travel and Leisure every month, and I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful place. Oh, that's a beautiful place. Oh, that's a beautiful place. How is it that a luxury property or any kind of vendor can differentiate themselves when they appear to be the same from the outside?
I think it goes back to basics, Sam, like you said, and just kind of being human. I myself focus on relationships over transactions. Like, I'm a human being, you're a human being. I sit in this role where, and full disclosure and being completely transparent and honest, I had to build ALHI Weddings from scratch, right? I had to build a brand new business that did not exist. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I am where I am today, and I've gotten to be successful and gotten ALHI Weddings on the map because of those relationships that I built. And that took time, and that took trust, and that took, the 24-hour response time, that took being consistent, that took being honest. I mean, I'm a very straight shooter. And if, Laura as a planner comes to me and says, hey, I have a client and they're looking for da, 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 I'm going to look at my list and I'm going to be very honest and say, these are the 5 properties that check the boxes. And if she says, well, what about this one? Again, I'm going to be honest and say, no, and these are the reasons why. And so I think if hotels can apply that, and they are starting to do that more, and again, they're starting to be more human and not be transactional, I think that's helping them stand, apart from the crowd and apart from what some of the other 5-star hotels are doing. And maybe a planner or a couple that was looking at a 5-star property and wasn't getting that genuine service. And again, we're in the world of hospitality. They may go to a 4-star property or to another star that they weren't looking at just because of the customer service that they're receiving. So I think we need to remember that we are in the world of hospitality at the end of the day, no matter kind of like what realm we're coming from within the wedding industry.
And
I want,
I was going to say
yeah,
too,
go ahead,
sorry.
Abby.
I was gonna say too, like all this stuff is so great, and also making sure people know about it. Like Eleanor is talking about zippers. Like, how funny would it be to like do a social around like all the testing of their zippers and the ones they throw out, and like this zippers back and forth, and like showing it. So Eleanor's talking about it here, but like I think other people want to see it, and then they are happy to pay the value, the dollar that you're asking for, because they see that value. Or like Kimberly saying, here's the reasons why. Like, don't just tell Laura, tell other people so that you can educate them. And they're going to be like brides, grooms are looking online trying to figure out how to plan their wedding. Eventually, they're going to go to their planner, hopefully, but they're also going to look for those things themselves. So I think about putting that information out there and like not gatekeeping it is so important.
I'm glad you brought that up, Abby, and I want to get to just being mindful of the time. We're about 2/3 of the way through. I've got some Q&A. There's one thing that I want to return to, because just as a business coach, I see this over and over again. I've worked with 1,000 plus people one-on-one over the last 9 years now, and I've run into all sorts who are at all different stages of their business. I'm just going to ask a benign question here. Let's just go through in alphabetical order again. Tell me, how many years have you been in the wedding industry? Abby, how many years?
So I shot my first wedding in 2009. So that makes it what, 15, 16, something like that.
Years. Okay.
Mhm.
Daniel?
Like 17, 18.
Okay. Eleanor?
17 years.
Kimberly?
15 years.
Laura?
I think 16 or 17 years.
Okay. I've been in since 2006, so this is my 19th year. I'm going into my 20th year in a few months. The reason why I bring this up is that it took all of us a really long time to get where we're at right now. You don't get to be on a panel after being in business for 3 years, or even 13 years. Everybody here has been in the business for a very long time. I want to go kind of round robin here and get a take on what kind of time frame people should expect to find the level of success maybe that they have being seen or shown or hoping for with their business. There's that overnight success that is that myth that everybody thinks is possible, but it takes years and years and years, maybe even a decade or more, before you actually find it. What is it that you think that business owners today can expect in today's economy? Are you going to find super rapid growth, or are you going to find success right away? And if not, what are some things that business owners can do to feel like they're making progress while they continue the slow progress towards the ultimate goal that they have? Kimberly, you have a sense of what that might look like and any recommendations?
Absolutely. And kind of speaking back to what I did. So prior to joining ALHI, I had my own destination wedding planning company, which I ran for 10 years before selling in 2020. And what I did when I first started is I really started reaching out to seasoned planners, experts in the industry, people that I knew were very, very successful. People like Laura, for example, who are mentoring people. I was like, I'm starting, I'm brand new. This is where I want to get to. How can I do it? So just connections, connecting with the right people, and just knowing that it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, and being patient with it and just sticking with it. I think that, just the resilience and the persistence is something that really helped me, and understanding that even with ALHI, it took about 4 years to get to where we are today. So it doesn't happen overnight, but stick to it, do the right things. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And again, connect with the right associations and the right people.
Eleanor, I know you've got a big team. You're a director of sales, and so you're managing people who are kind of, who knows, 3 years to 10 years in their career. What kind of things do you recommend to your own team or to other people who might be in the audience about having patience and putting in the time?
I have been really fortunate to develop a super close relationship with our president and owner, Pablo. And thankfully, over the last few years, he's entrusted me to help with some of that growth strategy as we've been looking at the ways in which our business has changed, specifically after COVID. So, in thinking about what I perceive that has created success for us is, I think one thing that really changed for us after COVID, and I go back to that because I think that was a time when probably a lot of businesses had to step back and look at their values, or maybe it was a time when many of the attendees today decided to start their business. You're going to do a lot of trial and error as you're figuring out, what is my business's identity? What is my lane? What am I really good at? Last year, which weddings or which clients did I really enjoy working with, and why? I think it's important on a regular basis to do some type of a retrospective to consider, did that work? Or if it did work, did it move me closer to the goals that I have set up for myself? Did that feel aligned with my values? Is it something that I want to do more of or less of? And I think it's important to go through that practice regularly, whether it's every 6 months or every year, and understanding that if you're very new in your business, you're going to have some bad years. You're going to have quarters that didn't feel great or that were very slow, and you're going to question yourself. I think what everyone on this panel can benefit from is just the ability to flatten that curve over time, because as you're longer in business, that volatility does start to go away. You establish a brand for yourself, you feel more confident, like Daniel, you know, kind of saying, this is what I believe in. These are the types of clients that I work best with. Maybe that's not you, and that becomes okay. I think you also become more familiar with what you need in order to feel successful and fulfilled in your business. So your expectations around what looks successful could change over time, that lead you to a place where you're feeling much more fulfilled and like you want to continue down the path that you've established for yourself.
Anybody else have a take on how long the road to success can last and what you should do at milestones along the way, Laura?
I think if you are doing something that is extremely unique and different, you might see success faster than others because you're providing something that has never been done before. And what does that mean? If you're a planner that only does goth weddings, that is your own lane. You're not just, doing a poo-poo platter of what everybody, I'll take whatever. And so your success is measured in different ways, but it can't be cross-contaminated by all the other people that are also here and also doing it. So I would say lean in and be extremely unique and hone into, maybe it's what you like or what you like doing, setting yourself aside and finding that one unique niche type of person that could produce a much more higher success rate than just being somebody that does it for everybody. Um, I was talking to one of my photographer friends, and we were talking about choosing events that felt really great for their portfolio, and that they were choosing things for the next year that felt really good to them and that they really want to showcase what they can do, and it was going to be their choice to do those things. Great. I also think that it can also be a paycheck. I think we're really critical of ourselves here, that we all need to be the next big thing, the next internet sensation. Again, the social media of it all is very noisy. It's okay to choose the paycheck sometimes over the portfolio. And remember that we're all still paying the same bills and we're doing stuff. And depending where you're at in your level of time in your career, might be different. Maybe you're just trying to pay the bills and you're starting out. Great. Take the weddings, get the experience, find your people. Maybe you're 10 years in and you're over just the paycheck. You really want to build out what you love and showcase that more. But let's all be sensitive to where you're at. And this is not a career that happens overnight. Everyone needs to lean into that and understand that it takes time to make that mark to find your spot.
Yeah, I mean, the arc of a professional career, I'm 47. I've been doing, stuff out of college now for 25 years. I'm like halfway through my professional career according to the traditional arc. After 20 years of being in the wedding industry, I'm like just reaching my peak. And what's ironic is that if I look back at where I was when I thought that I was at the top of my game, when I went from Roche Harbor, the venue, to Todd Events as the number two, I was like, I thought I had it covered. I thought I was like, I am a master of my craft. I realized I was just hitting journeyman status. So just recognize the arc of your career is long, and if you're not in double digits yet, you've got a lot more potential to tap into. And I say that optimistically, right? Like what an upside! You've got so much more potential that you get to tap into, and that's really exciting. I want to go to some questions because we got about 15, 20 minutes left. And one of the questions that came up here just now is, what about the economy? What about the negative, media that we see? And I want to touch on it, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And I'm glad that this person brought it up because it is hitting all of us. It's something that we haven't really addressed here, but the reason why I personally didn't want to bring it up as the moderator and the person who's guiding this is because we can't change any of that. We don't get to change what numbers come out. We don't get to change what's on the news. We don't get to change what's going on in politics. We don't get a lot of control over that. Should you participate in it? Absolutely 100% to your heart's conviction. When it comes to your business, I think there's a lot of upside to just accepting this is what's going on. And given this is what's going on, here is how I'm going to respond with my business. That was what my comment was about earlier, is that all of these things are affecting all of us equally. And some people are doing really well and some people are really struggling. And there's a lot of people who are in the middle. And what I would encourage all of you to focus on are the things that are within your control, the things that you can impact. And focus on those activities that we've been talking about today. Do these things, and who's in the White House, and how much, what numbers are coming back from the economists won't matter as much, because all you need to do is get 20 people or 15 or 25 or 10 to say yes to whatever it is that you are selling them. You don't have to worry about the 2 million people who are getting married, or the 350 million people in this country, or the 8 billion people on the planet. You just got to worry about what you've got to do to find your 20 people, or whatever that number is for you. So I just encourage people to stay very focused on that. All right, I want to get into a question here. And Daniel, I know you had your hand up, and I'm going to go to you first on this one because you brought it up first. What are the ways to share and connect values with the couples who are on discovery calls or sales calls, whatever it is that people call it? How do we share our values organically on that call or in those conversations?
I just ask him simply, what do you want from your wedding? Why are you having this wedding? And I leave it open-ended. I try not to guide it. And I think the values, those are just my values, right? My values have to align. values can be different. And that's the thing. That's the beauty of, at least I'm going to talk about photography and art. That's the beauty of art, is that there's somebody for everybody. So if my couple's like super into fashion, super into like that world, then that's their values, then they'll find a photographer with that value. And those two are a match made in heaven. My values are a little bit different. When I find that couple, that's a match made in heaven. And so I just ask my couple simply, what do you want from your wedding? Why are you having the wedding? Um, and we just go from there. And if the values don't align, because I will tell them what I look for in photos from a wedding, then they'll know off the bat, hey, this might not be the right fit. And I think that making sure that its alignment is super key, not just for how they're going to experience the wedding on the wedding day, but for us and for long-term like success, in my opinion. And so I ask them that, and then I show what I like. That's the easiest way. I show what I like, whether it's going to get good engagement or not, because if it's not aligned with what I want, I'm going to keep getting that misalignment. So only showing what I like, there's a couple out there that's going to see that and be like, hey, that's what I like too. Let me contact that guy. And that just makes the process just a lot easier instead of like miscommunication.
Mhm. Abby, how do you articulate or express those values or what you like in a way that resonates with an audience on social media?
So I think it's hard because you want to be organic. You don't want to be, you don't just like, you can put it out there blatantly. There's like that way, but also you don't want to be so salesy that it feels like in your face. So I think you have to identify what they are and then figure out how to show it. So, like, for example, we posted one recently with Abby G Photography about like how many times can you fix a fork? And it's because we want to attract those planners that like value that we put a lot of time into this detail photos. And so we're like kind of making fun of it and not just be like, hey, we always like, if you want to see our gallery, you can just email us and we'll send you a gallery. Like that would be a way to show it, or you can make fun of yourself and like fix your fork over and over and over. So I think it's like fun and organic ways to do it. But sometimes you're just so emotionally tied to your brand. It's really hard to like step back and like understand what makes you different and how to show it. So that can be hard too.
Mhm. Anybody else have thoughts on how to put yourself out there? It could be social media, it could be your brand on your website, or even just in your email correspondence. Yeah, Eleanor?
Yeah, I think more broadly speaking, and kind of a way to weave this into everything that you're doing more subtly, because I agree with you, Abby, like it could be a little bit cringy when you're like, these are my values. No shade to anybody who does that. But if you want to be a little more subtle, if that approach aligns with your values, think about word choice, think about the way that you're telling stories or, the image selection that you're using, all of those things. If you haven't done kind of a brand communication study around the way that you need to be crafting your voice, how are you speaking to people? Because you could be choosing words that are not landing on the right ears. You're not speaking to the right audience. When you get that dialed in and you're really able to put into words, okay, this is exactly the word choice or the phrasing that sounds exactly like what I mean for it to say, people will pick up on that and respond to it and come back to you. It just kind of starts this little concentricity. So maybe it's a matter of hiring somebody that can do that assessment for you, look at your brand voice, write the voice that works for you so that your marketing materials are really speaking in your language. You may not know how to get there, but somebody out there does. So seek that out.
Yeah, we've done hundreds of these brand communication strategies over the last 6, 7 years. Katie, my wife and business partner, when we talk about it internally, we call it voice of customer, which is what Eleanor just mentioned, which is that you got to go out and find what words are your customers, is your audience using, and then start to feed that into your captions, into your graphics on social media, on your website, in the email correspondence, whatever it may be. When I go through and come up with podcast titles or, panel descriptions or whatever it is, I'm constantly feeding voice of customer in there so that it resonates with the people and they're like, oh, that's exactly what I was thinking, because it's that actual word that's there. So super important to go through and make sure that you are paying attention to what people are saying to you. All the information's there.
Sam, can I
Yeah, go
jump
ahead,
in?
Kimberly.
Sorry to interrupt. I totally agree with that. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but I just feel like it's so important to acknowledge that we're dealing with a new generation that speaks differently to previous generations. They're looking at different things. They're on TikTok and they're on, yes, they're still on Pinterest potentially. They're on Instagram, but they are on TikTok. And I myself am a little bit terrified of TikTok, but you have to acknowledge where they are, right? And so that not only are you speaking their language, but you're finding them where they're actually looking for, I think, vendors and inspiration.
Hmm. I want to go to this new question, which is about timeline. Decision-making timelines have been protracted more so. We talked about the inquiry or the active planning stage to wedding date has shrunk. I think we can all agree. People aren't necessarily planning their weddings for a full 15, 18 months as often as they were. It's more like 5 to 8 now. But within that, still, ironically, paradoxically, people are taking longer to make decisions. Now, I would say that I don't think it's exponentially longer than it has been in the past. It feels like that because we're coming off of the pandemic boom when people were like, "Oh my God, there's a date and a vendor free, and I kind of like them. I'm going to sign a contract right away." Like that's what it was like for the last 5 years. So it feels like it's really slow comparatively or relatively. But I'm curious, Laura, especially from your planner perspective, because you're trying to get these people to make decisions so you can check a vendor category off the list. What's the holdup, and what would you recommend? Not just downstream vendors, but planners as well do to keep with people so that they are top of mind and tip of tongue when they're making the decision.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love a quick turnaround. Like, you want to get married in 3 months, like, let's do this. The ROI for me is through the roof because I can typically meet somebody, have an hour conversation, and know who, what, when, where, why. Maybe not the design out the gate, but I could tell you which vendors are going to be perfect for you and I also want to work with and make it amazing. I do think the time frame from booking from the very beginning inquiry to sign contract and deposit, at least for my clients, I try to make it within a week or two. There's usually not a lot of questioning when I'm proposing a vendor. I know who I need to find. I think the trepidation on the client side is that the influx of information, and they're also crowdsourcing. People are getting married later. They've been to more weddings. If they're in the luxury frame, their parents are probably helping pay or they are paying. They have opinions. And so the influx of just quantity of choices is really vast. And sometimes it feels like, wait, shouldn't I check other places first? Um, I really tell our clients when they book us from the beginning, this is how it's rolling. I'm going to send you the vendor. I promise you they're the best. I'm your insurance in making sure that everything is amazing. I don't want to work with any jerks either. I know what your budget is. I'm not trying to push it for any other reason other than it's the right fit. And when I say that from the jump, they're much easier to maneuver through choosing vendors. And so I really try to keep it within a week or two. I also take clients kind of on a journey of like this week or this month, we're just doing photo and video. Let's not get all the other things out there. I also personally don't do their design until about 6 months before the wedding. So we're booking vendors that are time sensitive, date sensitive, location sensitive from the jump. And then once that piece is settled, I have my, photographer, videographer, band. I might even put a deposit on the floral team, but then I'll say I'll call you in 6 months. And because I tell clients from our initial phone call that I'm the driver of the bus and you guys are just sitting shotgun with me, they lean into that. And I think when you tell people this is how it's going to go, it's much easier. But I think where there's been a couple clients that don't just fall in line, it's because they feel like they need to just scratch the itch with another vendor because so and so told them so, or they saw something on Reddit. I never dismiss anyone. I want to suss it out because I want to be sensitive to this generation. But gosh darn it, do they always just come back to what it was supposed to be from the very beginning and what I was saying? um, but I think if you give people deadlines, they will happily fall in line. There's only 52 weekends a year. Um, make them understand that it's not just you can have whatever you want when you want it. So I give deadlines. Hey, we're deciding this by Friday. We need to make a decision. This person has other people that are interested. Gently, but with respect to everyone's time.
Yeah, so that's a big shout out to you planners out there. Take some of that advice that Laura just offered because it'll make it easier for all the other downstream vendors to get some of the decisions going. I also want to highlight that Laura's looking for 1 to 2 weeks and like really doing everything she can, every trick in the bag to get that to happen. Imagine if the couple didn't have a Laura working with them. Imagine how much longer it takes. Yeah, of course, they have totally lost the plot if they don't have a Laura. But when you go through and you think about that for a Daniel or an Eleanor or an Abby or the floral designer, whatever it is, if you are listening to this, that is how tough it is. So set your expectation for two things. One, it's going to take a while, a few weeks. When I was booking, and this is a long time ago before anybody was talking about how long it takes for couples to book, it was between 20 and 25 days. 3+ weeks was the average from inquiry to booking for me. I'm pretty good at sales. And that was a long time ago when people weren't taking forever to make decisions. So just kind of set your own internal expectation that it's going to take a little while. So that means that two, you have to respond to that by doing more than just sending out initial email and then going, ah, crap, they didn't get back to me. I guess they ghosted me. Or even a second email or a third email. You've got to find a way to keep them engaged directly through correspondence, but also indirectly through a killer website and an active social media feed. And by finding out where do they come from and how can you get in through the side door with talking with whoever referred or whatever it might be to kind of whisper in their ear. There's lots of things that need to be done. And it is getting tougher. You've got to get better. That's the response. I want to do a round robin here on what success looks like to you all. Nicole, thanks for asking this question. When you think about success, what comes to mind? Anybody want to go first? Eleanor?
Yeah. I mean, I'm leading a team, so I'm really focused on what is happening inside of our business. I think that the way that your business feels on the inside has a huge impact on the way that it trickles out to your clients. So for me, success is seeing that my employees, my colleagues, are excited to show up for work every day. They believe in what we're doing. They feel involved in the process, and they want to keep going because we're moving in the right direction. And when all of those wheels are, all four of them are moving in the right direction, you're so powerful to be able to create unbelievable experiences for clients. You're getting better all of the time. It's that forward momentum for me that feels like success.
Daniel?
For me, success is making sure that my family is taken care of with this business. I think a lot of times, myself included, I can get pretty meta. Like I can get pretty meta about the wedding industry and weddings. But at the end of the day, my wife's always there to remind me, being like, yo, we're good. Our bills are paid, And so as I keep a gratitude journal. I write in it every day. And it really helps ground me, being like my bill, like family's good. We're bills are paid. You made it. Everything else is extra. And that's kind of helped me not be like so anxious about, getting to a certain point. Like it's little steps. And then it really helps ground me. So wife, she's always grounding me in that little reminder.
Yeah, I love that. For those of you who are not woo-woo, Gratitude journals are a real thing. There's a ton of science behind it. I'm kind of late to the game on it. I end my meditation every morning with a may I be grateful for what I have right here, right now. And that is the way that I start my day, knowing that it's so easy to think more, 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 because that is what we are fed. More, more, more. Eleanor's gone, Daniel's gone. Laura, are you open to sharing what your version of success looks like right now?
Yeah, that I love that you said right now, because I think you should always edit yourself every couple years of what that is and what that means to you. And currently, right now, it's being creative, and my creativity feeds my soul. And I'm in an era of my company where I just really want to, for me, push the envelope, do something weird and different. And that's fun for me. And finding the clients and having the clients that let me do that is where my joy is. And I have to remind myself constantly that that's where the payment for me is, if you will. The excitedness, and really the vendors and me having fun together. Speaking of woo woo, when I look out to my vendor team on the wedding day and it's literally a sea of badass women, and we are just high-fiving and cheersing, iced coffees and making cool stuff together, that's my current level of and currency of joy and success.
That's great. Kimberly?
I'm going to just say, if Daniel, thank you for the reminder. And I don't have a gratitude journal. I need to start one. I'm one of those people that pushes the envelope and goes 24/7. I have this lovely accessory on. I broke my neck a week and a half ago, and I'm technically on medical leave, but I'm like, no, I'm doing this. I committed to this. And it's hard for me to slow down. And sometimes life just reminds you that life happens and there are other priorities like your health and your family and so many other things. For me, success really is connecting people, as cheesy as that sounds. It's making sure that I'm connecting the couple with the venue that's going to work for them, or connecting the planner with the right venue. And also, it's helping those venues. 50% of what I do is really consulting with venues that are trying to move the needle. We represent independent properties that don't have, national sales teams behind them or strong marketing dollars. So helping them find out who their client is. And when I see that work, when I see them get the leads, when I see them book the weddings, that just makes me happy. It's not about the numbers. It's not about meeting my quota. It's about connecting the right people and seeing them be successful.
Yeah, that helper's high. Abby, what's your version of success right now?
So I'd say from a social lens, it's like really leaning into who you are and not being afraid to show that. And I think that from, our panel here, like Daniel and Laura, they both have done that. And it not only does it bring self-fulfillment of being true to yourself, but it also attracts who you want to attract. And how Daniel is saying, only show what you want to attract. It's so important to do that, and just not be afraid to repel people you don't want, and know who you are and lean into that more and more so you can stand out from the noise.
That's great. Yeah, Laura, you caught me on it when I said this, your current version of success. I think it's so important that everybody spend time looking at what does success mean to them right now, or in the next 6 months or 12 months. It shifts over time and it changes. And if we don't have clarity, we'll end up getting either burned out or bored out, one or the other, or maybe both. And that's when things get hard. So finding that definition of winning, what does it look like? Connect your sense of purpose to that every single day when you go in. And life is not about work. It's just what you're doing to help take care of other people. Our mission, my mission, because I do get that helper's high, is to help as many business owners as possible. It's been fun to have over 1,200 people sign up, and 650 people at one point watch this live. Thank you all for attending. I've got a little bit more help that I want to offer, and that is another invitation to another free workshop. This is something that I love doing, so thank you to all the panelists for coming on this one. I don't do this enough. And so I'm gonna try and do more panels in the future, but I do have on the books a workshop for anybody who is here now. And if you're watching on a replay, you'll have this in the email. I am, and we have not yet talked about it, very fascinated with the impact of AI on the wedding industry. It is that giant that is kind of sleeping underneath the surface right now of our industry, and it will absolutely change the business whether you want it to or not. And I have spent the last several months eyeball deep learning about AI and how it can be helpful for your business. But I'm not talking about just for caption writing or blog posts or email templates. I'm talking about things that are really going to move the needle, because I think that pretty much everybody who's on this panel and who's in the audience right now is always looking for better clients that are willing to spend the kind of money that you're looking for. You want to fill a calendar with people that you love working with, who are paying you what it is that you deserve. And unfortunately, there's not enough direction on how to use AI to make that happen. We focus too much on how AI can save us time, but not how it can fill our calendars. And so I want to start changing the conversation. I'm going to do that on October 6th. Stephanie and Katie, if one of you could drop, if you have not yet already, in the chat, the link to our AI for Sales workshop that we're doing on October 6th, Smarter Insights, More Bookings. I'm going to go through and spend about an hour walking you through 3 specific things that you can do immediately after getting off of the workshop to help market and sell your business better. So keep an eye out for that. Lastly, we talked about defining what success looked like and trying to map out a path there. If today's panel lit fire under you, if you're realizing you need to sharpen your strategy for 2026, or you just want to get back on track and spend some time deep in thought, I want to invite you to something bigger than just a panel or a workshop. We have our 5-day immersive retreat that is in Mexico. We're going to San Miguel de Allende at the end of January. It is an opportunity for you to pull yourself out of your natural environment, to immerse yourself with 12 to 15 fellow business owners who are focused on identifying with real clarity what it is that they want out of their business, and then mapping out a path to get there. So we have about half of the spots filled up. We are looking to fill the other half in the next month or two. If you are interested, go ahead and click the link that Stephanie and Katie are going to drop in the chat, and let me know if you have any questions. We'd love to see you there. This retreat is the kind that changes lives. It alters the course of where you are heading with your business, and we hope that you'll give it some serious consideration, because Daniel, like you, brought up, it's not just about how much money you make, it's how you can enjoy and get the most from your business. And a lot of us lose that along the way. Panelists, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your perspective. I wish we had 3 hours instead of just an hour and 30 minutes, because I feel like we were just scratching the surface. If you are here as an audience member, thank you for taking time out of your day and sharing it with us. We hope that you got information, but also direction and motivation and inspiration to take action. Remember that your goals are always going to be there, and the activities that we do now are what will help get you ultimately where you want to go. So yes, set a course, set out a plan, but head down, do the work. It takes months, years to get ultimately where you want to go, and the best time to start is today. Thank you all very much.